Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session as part of the OMET analysis. And today we're discussing the SNAP 2019 preparation strategy and how you should go about attempting the paper. So as you all know, SNAP 2019 is this Sunday, and it's very important that all of you do give your best shot and get a good percentile in this exam. Because remember, you're already done with CAT and IIFT with two of the major exams. Most of you are also done with NMAT, and now you primarily have SNAP. Some of you might be having TISNET and ZAT as the big exams that are remaining. This session is brought to you by me, Nilanjan Dutta, a 100 percentiler, the topmost educators on Unacademy and an Unacademy Plus for the CAT and MB exam segment. So this is a brief about myself. And first up itself, I would like to talk about what the exam format for SNAP 2019 is expected to be. So usually SNAP is known to have 4 sections, but this time we'll not have 4, we'll just have 3 sections, which comprises of the VRC section, the QADI section, and of course the LR section. Talking of VRC section is expected to have 34 questions, each of 1.5 weightage, that is a total of 51 marks. The QADI section has 36 questions, each of 1.5 marks again, which is equal to 54 marks. This is 36 questions, and the QADI is 40 questions, so this is 1.5, that is 54 marks. The QADI section has got 40 questions, but here the questions are of 1 mark or of 2 marks, which is a total of 45. So 51 is the total marks weightage for VRC, 54 for LR, and when it comes to QADI, you have 5 questions which are in the 2 marks category, that is special questions, and for the rest 35 questions you have questioned the 1 mark category, that is total of 45 marks in the QADI section. Interestingly, while there are a total of 110 odd questions, the total duration of the paper is only 120 minutes, which basically means you expect to solve per question in a minute, that is 1 question in a minute. The number of sections is reduced to 3, unlike 4 where earlier you had the all important GK or current affairs section, and that played a huge role in the overall percentile in SNAP. The other thing is the marking pattern is +1 with only -1/4 of the total marks in the question. For those which are 1.5, you get -0.375, so basically 1/4 of the allotted marks are subtracted. So what that means is that the moment you have negative marking is only 1/4, unlike in CAT where you had 1/3, the less negative mark that is there, it means there is much more extra weightage for people attempting questions, because the chances, even if they now get, earlier if you got 5 correct and you got 5 wrong, you would end up with 5 minus of 1.67, that is 3.33, but now if you get 5 correct, 5 wrong, you end up with +5 minus 1.25, that is 3.75. So obviously in this scheme it is much more rewarding if you attempt more questions. So automatically the idea is you need to attempt as many questions as possible across the 3 sections. And to attempt more questions, you need to be going at a speed of one question per minute. So let us look at what are the topics that are important from the VRC standpoint. Some of these topics are pretty different from what is studied in CAT, especially if you look at the vocabulary section, which is very important for your OMAT exams, like antonyms, synonyms, idioms. Then you have fill in the blanks based questions, including those which are based on homonyms. So these are some of the very important, easy topics in the VRC section. Also, just like your other OMETs as well, it's important that you first attempt all the VA, plus you then start attempting one or two RCs once all the VA questions are done. Because remember, VA questions have the same marks weightage as RCs, but end up taking less time. So given that you need to maximize your attempted number of attempts in a given time, you need to look to attempt first all the VA questions. Phrase-based things, jumbled paragraph, jumbled sentences and so on are very important. Word analogy as well. Fill in the blanks is definitely going to be easy, but it's going to be scoring as well, so you must make sure you attempt all of that. In grammar, you'll have things like sentence correction, compound words, reasoning, strong or weak arguments, critical reasoning concepts, statement conclusions and so on. And you'll have a couple of passages which are again diverse in nature. But remember, RC is supposed to be a back burner. It's supposed to be the grammar and the vocabs which you attempt more in SNAP. I'm sure those of you check the IFT analyst must have seen that there also we mentioned the same thing, that if you need to attempt all the VA questions with one or two RCs after that, whatever time you get, the same thing holds here as well. So the next thing is, how much time do you devote per section? So ideally per section, what you're supposed to do is devote at least 30 minutes to each of the three sections. 30, 30 and 30. It's after you've devoted 30 minutes per section, you still have 30 minutes left, and here is where you need to figure out your two most scoring sections. For example, if you're an engineer and you believe that DILR and Quants are your stronger areas, then invest in these two sections. In case you believe that Quants' numbers is not your strong area, then invest in this as well as this section, that is the VRC section and the LR section. But make sure that the last 30 minutes is being devoted to those two sections which you believe will maximize your raw score. Sadler, we'll come to the cutoffs portion later. But as such, the percentage cutoffs, if you're looking at the percentage of the total, percentage cutoffs will definitely, it should go higher, because GK is a area where people underperform or underscore because they aren't prepared for it compared to the other exams. Because other exams you don't have the GK section, so percentage wise, it should definitely go up. We'll discuss the cutoffs when compared to 2018. We'll definitely have a look at the cutoffs as well. Next, talking about the Quanzhen DI. So arithmetic, just like in every other exam, arithmetic still remains the most important part of the Quanzhen DI section. Again, this is something where you attempt more of the quants and less of the DI. The reason is very simple, because you'll not get stuck in quants, whereas in DI there's always the possibility of you getting stuck, especially if it is a little bit complicated set. And remember, in these exams, which are speed-based exams, you need to attempt questions, one question a minute. It's very important that you don't get stuck in any question or any set. If you get stuck in a DI set, you might end up wasting 7-8 minutes, whereas in quant, you might maybe end up wasting a max of 1.5 to 2 minutes, which is why attempting more in quant's area is always a safer bet. So focus primarily on arithmetic, numbers, algebra, and so on. These are the areas where you need to maximize. Unlike a CAT or XAT, geometry can be maybe deprioritized a little bit for the SNAP exam. Also, one more important topic that comes back is the data sufficiency topic. Data sufficiency, it becomes very important as far as the SNAP exam is concerned. So do make sure that all of you are revising a bit on the data sufficiency front. Level of difficulty wise, the level of difficulty is easy to moderate. The primary challenge will be the time front, that you need to go faster with the questions. Otherwise, it is the level of questions is mostly going to be easy, moderate. Very few will be in the difficult side. There might be a few DI sets which are a bit logic based sets and so on. So one odd set might be like that. Avoid those sets. In case you're attempting DI sets as well, attempt the traditional tables and pie charts and graphs, which are much easier to solve, which you know for sure that if you invest 4-5 minutes time, you'll definitely get it, compared to any logic based DI set. Logic based DI sets are always more tricky, and there's no assurance of whether you'll get it right or not. So any questions, anybody, on the Quanzhen DI portion? The final section and the most important, the make or break section again in SNAP, because this is the section which is the most scoring part, is the reasoning section. So here you have a couple of questions on certain years on verbal reasoning and CRs, but in general most of the questions are on the traditional logical reasoning, that is things like maths based, puzzle based, sequential output, numerical grid series, and so on. Some of the ones which are highlighted in red are indicating those topics which are new and different from CAT. For example, Visual reasoning is something which is not tested in CAT. So what you can do is you can check out my sessions on Snap where I've discussed visual reasoning. I've discussed series based LR, which is again something which is different for Snap. Input out based LR is a very important topic and you need to revise for Snap as well, just like you did for NMAT and IFT. Numerical grid is again something which is not tested much in CAT but is important for Snap. Arrangements and family tree are pretty similar. It's just that the level of sets are LOD1 and maybe one or sets might be LOD2, but mostly LOD1 sets. Sets on things like Roman numbers and so on, and some miscellaneous sets are there. Also, you've got to be careful for the concept of singlets. So unlike in CAT where every set involves 4 questions, here you might get some standalone ones across the entire spectrum, be it in terms of puzzles, be it visual reasoning and series of standalone questions. Even in arrangements or in blood relations, sometimes you get standalone questions like your person is pointing to a photograph and you believe the relation is this, then how is that person related and so on. So again, we get a lot of standalone singlet based questions in the LR section. So in Snap, make sure you're being prepared for addressing singlet questions as well and not just set based questions. The other portion is the verbal reasoning. So make sure that all of you are revising your critical reasoning because that is very important, not just for Snap but for XAT as well. In Snap, in 1 or 2 years, you might find that critical reasoning or verbal reasoning is missing, but in general, it's an important part. So it's better that you be prepared for this topic as well. Level of difficulty wise, the verbal reasoning is usually said to be medium. The rest of it is mostly in the easy range with maybe a couple of questions in the medium, but mostly it's there in the easy range. The verbal reasoning is the only portion which is the medium level of difficulty. So that is something, the more you can avoid, the better. Having said that, those of you who are stronger on the VARC front, you might look to attempt a few questions of VA in verbal reasoning because that might give you a sizable advantage. Now let's look at the Snap 2018 analysis along with what the cutoffs were like. So Snap, as I said, the biggest difference was you had special questions in every section. That is one part to it, which were of 2 marks weightage. Whereas this time, as we just clarified, it will be part of only a single section. You will be having the special questions. Special questions involved higher weightage and it involved even certain things like type in the answer format. In general, if you look at current affairs is now gone out as a section. The rest section remain the same. Mostly it's on the easy to moderate side. The questions aren't very difficult in Snap. The only reason why it's not very easy is because the time pressure is still there. Because remember, you need to still attempt 110 questions in 120 minutes, which is not a very easy thing to do. Current affairs I'll skip because that is not relevant for Snap anymore. Verbal has been easy in the recent years. Grammar dominated, vocabs dominated and so on. So again, make sure that you're being very thorough with your preparations for the grammar portion, the vocabs. RC questions are few. In any way, they are expected to attempt fewer RC questions and attempt more of the questions from the other areas. So out of 40, the decent attempts would have been 33 plus. So now that you have, so again, I would say approximately attempt 80% plus of the paper. In every section, try and attempt around 80% plus of the paper. And as far as the scores go, you should be looking at something like a 50 to 60% in every section. That would be a very good score to go ahead with. Logical reasoning, last year had no verbal reasoning. As I said, a couple of years they avoid the verbal reasoning, but in general, verbal reasoning plays a major role. So do not ignore the verbal reasoning or the critical reasoning portions, because those can become very, very important. They usually are a more well-rounded exam as far as the LRS portion, because they give you both singlets, which are standalone things from topics like coding, decoding, input-out-based LR, blood relations, arrangements, and so on, along with the caselet based thing. Most of the caselets, again, caselets might have a different number of questions. Some may have 2, some may have 3, some 4, some 5. That depends from year to year. These are attempts is again 80% of the total number of questions and 60% of the total marks. If you can get that, would 50-60%, that would be considered a very good score. Quant's arithmetic is the most important one, followed by the rest: modern math, geometry, algebra. Last year DI and DS were missing, but in general DI and DS is something which is you can associate with SNAP, just like an important part of NMAT as well is an important part of SNAP. So I would say be prepared for DI and DS as well. Again, out of 40, if you look at 33 plus, the 80% is what is a good attempt, and 60% is what is a good score to go ahead with. So if I look at the cutoffs last year, the cutoffs last year were something like this. So SIBM Pune was 74 types, SCHMRT was 70s, 1 types, SIBM 60s, and so on. So if you look at the cutoffs for this year, how should they be going? So what you can look at is the overall cutoffs. So this time, as you know, instead of the current affairs, you have the entire thing on 150. So given that earlier years you had the cutoffs in and around the 70s to 80 mark, this time you can expect the cutoffs to go up, because compared to current affairs, the other topics are definitely more scoring. So you can expect the cutoffs to be in and around the 85 mark out of 150. 85 would definitely convert your thing. 80 plus should give yourself a chance to get a call. So 80 plus you can expect a call, and maybe 85 plus is a decent chance to ensure a call. 90 plus would give you a very good stand for converting it. So you remember I talked about trying and getting 60% in every section, because remember 60% of 150, which is your maximum marks, is equal to 90. So that automatically means if you're getting 60% in each section, on an overall basis, you will be at the 90 plus barrier. So that is the way this thing works. So remember, 80 plus might just get you a call, but 90 is always going to be safe to ensure that you can give yourself a chance to convert your call as well. So always try and look at a 60% at a sectional level and a 90 at an overall. That will be corresponding to a good score. So finally, some key pointers to keep in mind. Remember, SNAP is a 2-hour exam with 110 odd questions, 150 marks in total. So it's a speed-based test, and there are a bit of sectional cutoffs in certain years as well, along with it being a speed-based test. Sectional cutoff may not be there necessarily, but it's important that you maximize your overall scores. Less difficult compared to CAT for sure, at least as far as the level of questions. The other worry, the differential weightage, as you saw, there were questions of 1.5 weightage, and again in one section there are questions of 1 and 2 weightage. So it's very important that you pay attention to what are the weightage of questions. Again, do not be too much of a gambler when it comes to going for only 2-mark questions instead of 1. No, that is not the way. Play questions on its merit. SNAP being an online test, since it's become online, is expected to be easier. And the biggest part of SNAP is there's only 25% negative marks, which means it's very important that all of you take your chances. Because remember, if you're attempting 80%, even if you have an accuracy rate of 80%, and that means 64% correct and 16% wrong, you still end up getting only 64 minus 4, because 1/4 of 16, that is 60%. So you're attempting 80% questions and 80% accuracy. You've done a decent job as far as your overall final scores. And the only reason is, remember, SNAP has 25 negative marking, so do take your chances in every question. Wherever you have a bit of a hunch as well, just go ahead and mark and answer. So that's about it as far as the SNAP 2019 exam preparation thing goes. So on that note, we wish all of you all the very best for the SNAP exam this Sunday. Once again, thank everybody and happy learning.